Got a new 30 visit for the San Francisco 49ers, bringing in another edge rusher and wide receivers to break down for the 2026 NFL Draft. Could Jordyn Tyson fall to the Niners at pick 27? And should they make that pick on today's Locked On 49ers?
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker. Thanks everybody for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. We love you. We appreciate you. Consider subscribing on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Got some more wide receivers to break down on today's show. 3 of them, Jordyn Tyson, Elijah Sarratt, and Antonio Williams. Are they a fit for the San Francisco 49ers? And if so, what round should the 49ers be looking at these wide receivers? And the 49ers, though, first, Croc, before we get to the wide receivers, we've got to talk edge for a second, because it has been reported now that the 49ers brought in another edge rusher on a 30 visit. So we knew that Texas Tech's Romello Height was a pass rusher that the 49ers had brought in, more of a stand-up rusher. I mean, he was under 240 at the combine, 239 pounds at about 6'3" for Romello Height, all pass rush type of a guy, stand-up type of a rusher. And the 49ers brought in another guy who's not super heavy, but he is juiced up, and that is Malachi Lawrence of the University of Central Florida. And he's a player that we broke down here on the podcast and has all kinds of athletic ability. There's some rawness to his game, a tad bit of stiffness. I remember Croc kind of rushes a little upright, but he's got these long arms and strong hands, so he wins, even though he exposes his chest. And occasionally he will show some ability to get around the corner and has an absolute closing burst and tons of athleticism. According to Mike Garafolo, Croc, UCF edge Malachi Lawrence, a top 50 prospect for Daniel Jeremiah, who ran 4.52 at the 40-yard dash at the combine, is visiting the Colts, the Seahawks, and 49ers this week. 3 of 16 visits for him ahead of the NFL draft. Significant work on Lawrence from clubs following his performance in Indy. So there you go, Malachi Lawrence, 6. Let me get his exact measurements correct here, because he flew at the combine 4.53 at 6'4", 253 pounds. Had a really good 10-yard split as well. And I'm trying to find it. Here we go. Malachi Lawrence, 6'4" and 3/8, 253, 4.52 40-yard dash with a 1.57 10-yard split, which is really good. Faster 10-yard split than Arvell Reese ran, who ran a 4.46 40-yard dash. And I'm kind of scrolling down here because I just want to see with that 10-yard split, which, the 49ers, they love their get off with their edge rushers. 1.57 10-yard split on this 40-yard dash for Malachi Lawrence is, best I can tell, the fastest 10-yard split of at least the top guys. And I'm scrolling all the way down. I'm looking at Dane Brugler's beast. I'm going to the top 39 edge rushers in this class, the guys that probably won't get drafted. Fastest 10-yard split, Malachi Lawrence, juiced up edge rusher. Croc has some length too. And a lot of these edge rushers that have speed, like Cassius Howell, don't have that length. He does have almost 34-inch arm length to go with the 6'4" frame and 253. So the type of athlete that you're looking for coming off the edge early in this draft, is it round 1? Is it round 2 is my question.
Oh, yeah. I mean, terrific athlete. I was searching, where's my notes on Malachi Lawrence? But, clearly a guy that's a specimen from a height, weight, speed standpoint. And, we've been talking about the 49ers and what exactly they need. They need somebody that can really rush off the edge, really utilize that speed. You have some big bodies like Michael Williams coming back from an injury, but he's supposed to be kind of an every down not every down. He's supposed to be a run-stopping 4-3 defensive end that can slide inside in passing situations. And when that happens, then the Malachi Lawrences of the world are the guys that's supposed to come off the edge and get after the quarterback. So he's a guy that's definitely intriguing to the 49ers. I know them bringing him in to, for a 30 visit. I don't think that's one of those kind of smokescreen type of things. They want to get to know the guy and see if potentially he fits from a mental and mindset standpoint.
So interesting stuff there. And it kind of goes in line with what we were thinking with the 49ers. That, they're bringing in those pass rushers, and I think they got to address that in the first 2 rounds. Round 1, round 2. I think edge rusher is a very good chance the 49ers draft one of those guys. And at this point, Malachi Lawrence is looking more like you got to take him at 27 because I don't think with that physical profile that he's going to be there at 58, even though there's still some work to do with him as a pass rusher. It kind of reminds me of Max Ahanichor, who is one of my favorite guys at offensive tackle. Now, edge rusher is deeper, and you can have more of a rotation and a one-dimensional player on the defensive line that you can't really do that on the offensive line with offensive tackle. But it's kind of a similar guy where it's like you see the athletic ability, and it's just something that you have to take that profile early or you don't get a chance at those guys later on. Wide receivers, Croc. A guy that the 49ers might have a chance at that earlier on in the process it would have seemed that they would have not had a chance at is Arizona State wide receiver Jordyn Tyson. When you put on the Jordyn Tyson tape, what did you see? And first of all, is he a slam dunk first round guy for you? Because there's some people that are all over the place. Some people think he's wide receiver 1 just based on the tape and his athletic ability. He's got some injury stuff we got to talk about too, if that's a fit for the 49ers, if he was to be there at pick 27. So when you put on that Jordyn Tyson tape, what did you see?
Yeah, I think we need to get the injury stuff, that part of the conversation out right now. If there's anything that's been a knock on Jordyn Tyson and potentially not so much is he a first round pick, I do believe everyone thinks he is, but how high he will go, it's because of those injuries. Otherwise, there's people that have him as high as going in the top 15 or so. And I think he has a terrific skill set. I'm not sure I see slam dunk top 15 prospect. When I think top 15, right? Like that's the range where a guy like CeeDee Lamb went. I remember other receivers, and one guy that he's being comped to is Justin Jefferson. Now, the Jefferson comp is interesting. I don't see that. I don't see that on film, but I see a lot of good things. So I'll talk about it. A very smooth player with okay twitch. Like I think there's enough kind of suddenness to his game. He's a guy that can win at all levels. So that's a big thing. When I watch a guy, and we'll get to Surratt, I don't want to spoil anything on Surratt. I'll stick to Jordyn Tyson here, but he's a 3-level winner. He can win intermediate on slants from the outside. He can win, on the short routes. He can win intermediate level running dig routes, and he shows really strong and confident hands going over the middle, not afraid of contact. And he has shown the ability to win vertical in different ways. You want to throw the jump ball, he can do that. You want him to outrun a guy vertically down the field, he can do that as well. So those were things I really like. Again, along with just showing strong hands. I talked about it on dig routes, not being afraid of contact, potentially getting hit. But he showed strong hands everywhere. He definitely is a guy that they really look to utilize in every single way. They're throwing screens to him. They're running stick routes to him. They're doing all kinds of different things to make it to where he is a part of the initial read and get the ball in his hands. And I thought they did that very well, and I thought he executed that as well. I said good acceleration out of his breaks off of releases. So sometimes you'll see guys kind of release, and then there's not much after that. I thought he did a really good job putting his foot in the ground and being able to accelerate past defensive back. So I talked also about he works his angles very well. So there was a lot to like about him. And the only thing I didn't quite care for, the injury history. So for me, if injuries aside, he feels like a guy that is a top 20 pick. I thought Justin Jefferson should have went higher than he went, so he was like 20 something, but he feels like a top 20 pick, and a guy that if he does happen to fall to the range of the 49ers, pick 27, injuries aside, I think he's somebody that you have to at the very least look into. We have been on board with saying, or on record as saying, I don't think the 49ers really go receiver. And again, they built themselves up to where they can take best player available. But does it make sense to take best player available and it's a receiver right now? Maybe because guys are essentially on 1-year contracts with Christian Kirk and Mike Evans. But to use a first-round pick on a receiver that essentially won't be a big part of what you're doing offensively as a rookie, a little tough. But I wouldn't be complaining if they drafted him because I think he does some really good stuff.
Yeah, the talent, the athleticism, certainly worth the 27th pick of the NFL draft. Let's talk about the injury stuff. If that is enough of a red flag that the 49ers should say no if he was there at pick 27. And a couple other negatives that I've seen out there with Jordyn Tyson that I want to run by you as well. Is he a fit for Kyle Shanahan? We'll talk Elijah Sarratt, from the national champion Indiana Hoosiers. The other guy, all of a sudden now with Omar Cooper, the most likely first-round wide receiver, Elijah Sarratt, more of a day two guy, or is he? We'll find out. Antonio Williams as well from Clemson is an interesting prospect. Could be a future San Francisco 49ers. Let's break him down next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters. Every matchup is magnified and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. And here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So all you got to do is win that first bet for new customers, $250 in bonus bets. The app makes it easy to follow the action, player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And if you don't want to bet on playoff basketball, that's okay. Guess what they have? NFL draft props, which I love. My favorite thing all year to get involved with at FanDuel, and of course those futures for the 2026 NFL season. So head over to FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Thanks again, everybody, for making this your first listen of the day. And if you are an everydayer, the Everydayer Club is for you. Check out the Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes of this podcast and access to a group chat with me and other listeners of this show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedon49ers.supercast.com. Okay, Croc, Jordyn Tyson, clearly talented, really loose athlete. We don't have any testing numbers on him to kind of, hammer home how athletic he is. He is 6'2", 203 pounds. Medical history, though, is the big red flag here. And essentially, Croc, if he's there at 27 with his athletic profile, probably means the medical red flag is pretty big. To me, that kind of means you can't even take him if he is there. So it's almost like a no-go no matter what. Would the 49ers medical staff look at him and say, oh, we like him, we're cool, he's a clear bill of health for us, where the other 26 teams, or maybe not all 26 teams would have been in on him, but the other teams that needed wide receivers, then go to other wide receivers that are maybe less physically talented, say, we don't like the medical there. So that's an interesting one. Here's his medical red flag history from Dane Brugler's The Beast draft guide that just dropped today, and I've having a fun time digging through all of this, and it'll be months of reading for me here pre and post draft. So he's missed multiple games in each of his 4 college seasons. Missed 3 games as a redshirt junior because of a hamstring injury in October 2025, which has also sidelined him for most of this draft process. That's an October hamstring injury. Jacob Cowing. We just saw Jacob Cowing go through this. The 49ers want to go through this with a draft prospect who had an injured grade 2 hamstring in in October of 2025 and still has not been able to work out in the draft process. Missed most of spring practices because of an ankle injury last year. Year before that, had a broken left collarbone in November of 2024, which forced him to miss the Big 12 championship and ASU's playoff game versus Texas. Torn ACL, MCL, and PCL in his left knee back in November of 2022, which ended his freshman season when he was at Colorado and sidelined him for most of the following season. And that was when Deion came over to Colorado, and apparently Jordyn Tyson did not feel loved in Colorado coming off his knee injury and ended up transferring. So he wasn't a part of the Deion Sanders Colorado Buffaloes football team, Croc. So that's a lot of injury stuff. That I despite the talent, I think just based on that, I would have to be out on Jordyn Tyson at 27, as talented as he is.
Yeah, and when people talk about him falling to pick 27, I think that's a reason why that potentially may be the case. Not only that, the injuries made it very difficult for him to be the most productive receiver. In this day and age, guys are putting up crazy numbers. They're playing a lot of years. They're playing a lot of games. And he had one season where he went over 1,000 yards. And you talked about it this past season. Because he missed 3 games, he was a 700-yard receiver and a guy that was featured heavily in the offense. So the injury thing, it has to be looked at as a real thing, especially with the amount of time that he missed. I mean, he has 2 seasons with Arizona where, he played 12 games. That's essentially an entire season. And then 9. The other season with Arizona, like you said, 3 games, 0 catches. Colorado as a freshman. decent, 22 catches, 470 yards, but not anything too wild. So, I do remember him because I believe he was one of the guys that played in the spring game for Colorado and then immediately left after that. It hit the portal, and he was a guy that I think they were like, "Oh, we like him," but maybe not enough. And as soon as he got to Arizona, he only played in 3 games. So the injury thing, Arizona State injury thing, big. I think it's a big deal. And when you look at some of these other receivers who have been as productive, if not more, but also healthier, probably would have to lean a little bit more towards them.
There's just enough question with him where he's just a wild prospect where I don't know where he's going to go. He could go top 15. He could fall out of the first round completely. I don't know what to do with Jordyn Tyson. And I don't know if he should be considered by the 49ers just due to the injury history alone. Yeah. Unfortunately. Elijah Surratt doesn't have the same problem. No questions about toughness for Elijah Surratt, a bigger bodied wide receiver out of Indiana, Croc. And he's a player I liked a lot. I watched him early. He's one of the first couple of wide receivers. I think it was Chris Bell and Elijah Surratt were the 2 of the first wide receivers I watched in this class back during the season. And I really liked what I saw. 6'2.5", 207 pounds. And I got to be honest, Croc, there's not a lot of speed there with Elijah Surratt. He ran a pretty good time at his Indiana Pro Day. He ran 4.53, which I'm surprised about. That's the same time that Carnell Tate ran at the Combine. Big 10-inch hands. He can make a catch in traffic. He's good settling in zone. He was the number 1 receiver for Curtis Rourke, current number 3 quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. Last year at Indiana, kind of got overtaken a little bit by Omar Cooper Jr. this year at Indiana. But he was kind of more of the red zone guy and made a lot of big catches, a lot of big plays over the course of his career for Indiana, and a player that I think could step in and play outside. But I kind of see a power slot. Maybe Elijah Sarratt is the answer to the 49ers replacing Juwan Jennings. Did you see a power slot? Did you see an outside guy? What did you see when you put on the Elijah Sarratt tape, Croc?
Yeah, so I think initially when you just watch the games live and you're watching the college football playoffs, you're seeing a lot of back shoulder stuff. And immediately when you see that amount of back shoulders without a legit kind of like vertical downfield passing game, you wonder, okay, is the speed there? Or is it enough to be able to run away from defensive backs? And I think that time and time again on film, the film showed as well, hey, this guy has an inability or an issue with being able to stretch the field vertically by running by guys, right? Like we talked about Jordyn Tyson, you were able to see him run by guys, separate down the field. There were times where, guys would get in his chest as well. But with Surratt, it just seemed to be very consistent that, hey, these have to be back shoulder throws. Now, and we talked a little bit about his quarterback, Mendoza, before coming on here. His quarterback was just fine with that. And he did a lot of really good job with the ball placement, throwing on the back shoulder. But I'm thinking, is that all he is? And as you watch the film, I think you realize, no, he's more than that. He has some run after catch ability. It's not the same as Omar Cooper's, but there's some strength there and some play speed there. I thought that, as I put here, he can win with routes underneath. I thought he separated on slants a little bit better and showed a little bit more twitch on the underneath routes than I was expecting to see. Being able to set himself up, play angles well, and separate right now to be able to catch some passes. Did he get some big-time guys? I think Ohio State guys are playing very physical against him. And he said, hey, I can separate underneath as well. I watched him run some really good timing routes, and I think that's the part when you think of if this is a guy that can fit for the 49ers, it's because when he's running those timing routes, man, he gets into it. Yes, he doesn't have the most vertical speed, but he plays at one speed. And it's almost like Juwan Jennings. Like what made Juwan Jennings solid for the 49ers and productive? Is Juwan Jennings just running by guys vertically? No. But, hey, I'm going to win on these routes with timing. If I have a 6-yard speed cut out, I'm going to run that. I'm going to whip that head around, catch the ball, and I'm going to be able to do that at a decent speed early on. That was something I saw with Juwan Jennings at University of Tennessee. Not the fastest guy, but he was winning on those seams and kind of those bends, those bang eights. I'm like, man, how's this guy winning? But he was getting up to top speed fast. There just wasn't much after that, even though he was one of the top in the nation in run after catch, a strong football player. Surratt, not sure if he played as strong as Juwan Jennings, but he showed enough with with the ability to win with timing, where do you draft that? Because it seems like it's very specific with how he has to win. Feels more like a round 3 type guy that can be good in the NFL. When I looked at his player comp, they comped him to Alan Lazard. And I thought Alan Lazard was a good football player. But again, probably wasn't going to beat you with a whole lot of speed. I remember Lazard coming out of Iowa State. I liked him. Alan Lazard went undrafted.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I thought he was going to be a tight end conversion, Alan Lazard coming out of school.
Yeah. He looked a little bigger and slower in college than he did in the NFL. I thought he got to the NFL and looked like he fit right in and was just like, I'm just kind of a bigger receiver that can move at kind of like one speed.
I've seen some people throw out a Keenan Allen comp for Elijah Surratt. And now Keenan Allen it was a special guy. There's a big gap between Keenan Allen and, say, Juwan Jennings or Alan Lazard. But I see why. I mean, he's a dependable guy. He can get open. He can make big catches. He'll block you. He's got some physicality. I think Keenan Allen had a little extra level of quicks and ability to separate underneath that I wouldn't put that on Elijah Surratt. But Surratt does have something to him, even though he's not a speed guy. He's a possession guy.
Well, it almost made me uncomfortable with him saying that. And I get people will look at, what Keenan Allen did. It's pro day, and it's like, oh, he ran a 4.7, and it's like, did y'all watch Keenan Allen in that Cal? He was the guy, and he was the only guy during those few years. He had his brother throwing him the ball or his stepbrother or whatever. But
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Keenan Allen was a guy like Cal.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarratt, while clearly being someone that Cignetti really likes, right? Kirk Cignetti, I mean, he took him from JMU to Indiana. You talked about his rapport with Rourke. All right. So there is a lot to like in the sense of, him being a good football player. Comparing him to Keenan Allen coming out. Keenan Allen did go third round because he had that kind of he had like a hamstring injury, didn't run fast, got drafted third round, and it's like, wow, that's a steal. He's a hell of a football player. And if he wasn't hurt and probably would have ran faster, we'd be talking about Keenan Allen a lot different in that class.
Yeah.
But he was big time at Cal. Surratt, good receiver, does some things well. Playing the timing-based offense, which I do think the 49ers have. But how much do you covet that? Because he is so specific.
Yeah, that timing-based thing, that's why I identified Curtis Rourke last year. I was like, oh, this is a Kyle Shanahan quarterback. And this was his number one receiver that year. So I bet Kyle Shanahan has seen the tape, likes Elijah Surratt. Is he a second-round guy, 58? Does he slip all the way to the fourth round potentially? Because he's not, a big-time athlete. And it's a really deep class. Probably not, somewhere in between, third round. I think that's the right spot for Elijah Surratt, but I wouldn't be completely shocked if he goes late round 2, where the 49ers are selecting around number 58. That's probably about as high as I would see Elijah Surratt going. Would feel more comfortable, and it's slam dunk if he's there, with one of those fourth round picks for the 49ers.
Also had some takes on Mendoza that we kind of discussed already, like while watching him, and I'm like, you see good skill set stuff, but like the mobility is definitely something that's going to be limited at the NFL level. Like when you watched him against Ohio State, it was clear, like, yeah, I can look a little athletic against certain teams, and he can use his legs a little bit, but the NFL level, like, that's going to be super neutralized. So you're going to turn a little bit more into a Jared Goff as opposed to this guy. Brock Purdy, I believe Brock Purdy utilized his legs better at the NFL level than Mendoza will be able to. I think Mendoza has a better arm. He has a good arm. Jumps on, but he wasn't asked to make like a lot of NFL throws. I mean, you just see screens, back shoulder, screen, back shoulder. Okay, a little timing stick route, back shoulder, another screen. And it's like, where are the NFL throws at? Didn't see a lot of those. So I'm just curious to see how his game actually translates. Seems like a really good kid, hard worker. So maybe it works, but seems a little rich at number 1 overall when you just kind of just watch him.
Croc. Fernando Mendoza, hater. Look, he was the second best quarterback out of Indiana the last 2 years. Put it that way. Next, let's talk Antonio Williams, wide receiver from Clemson. Is he a future San Francisco 49er? Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is, well, it's a lot. trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. So head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment today.
So, Peacock, while we're recording this podcast, our guy Brad, we got to get Brad on the podcast.
We got to do a roundtable. We got to.
He dropped a mock draft, and I'm not sure anybody would be very mad at this. All right, so I'm just gonna reel off. Really, I mean, we've talked a lot about these guys. All right,
yeah.
He must have traded back and got an extra draft pick. Looks like maybe an extra third and an extra fourth. But here we go. Malachi Lawrence at pick 42.
42. So dropped into the second round from 27 to take that first pick. Malachi, that's a great spot for Lawrence. 42. Yeah, like that.
Malachi Lawrence, Kalen Rutledge at 58.
Yeah.
Round 3, pick 73, Elijah Surratt.
Okay. Yes.
Pick 127, Jalen Kilgore, which I like Kilgore much more at that than how he was kind of being talked about. A guy we haven't talked about, tight end out of Georgia, Oscar Delp. But you did mock him to the 49ers.
He's got the Kittle profile. Big time athlete, ran a 4.48, underutilized in the Georgia offense, shows some physicality, a little smaller, I think, than George Kittle, but a little timed a little faster even than Kittle.
Yeah. And then last pick I'll talk about, but Emmett Johnson, running back out of Nebraska, which we discussed as well. Looked a little on the thinner side, or just with however he held his weight, but a guy who has some breakaway ability. So not a bad mock draft. I think that's one that you think about the 49er fan base and how they feel like that will really go over well with the fan base. I didn't read the comments yet, but I feel like when you just read off those names, they're all familiar guys. You could see exactly why you would take them. Good job, Brad Graham.
Right. It took them in a good spot. We would sign off on all those picks in all those spots. The trade down it's hard because you got to find a dance partner there. But we've talked about it here, man. Can the 49ers close that gap between round 2 and round 4? Get an extra third round pick in there. Whether it's moving down from 27, moving down from 58. I mean, that would be a home run draft for the 49ers. I like it. Antonio Williams. My big question for you, Croc, with Antonio Williams, because there's a lot to like. This is such a deep wide receiver class. Like, are any of these guys going to sneak into the round 4 area? That's where I'm starting to go with this, because there's just so many of these guys. And Antonio Williams is another one. He's got a lot of fans. Looking at Brugler's Beast, he's got him ranked in the right around the Elijah Sarratt area. So second, third round grade. 5'11 and a half, 187. So similar height to, say, KC Concepcion, but 10 pounds lighter. Ran a 4.41 40-yard dash. Croc, Antonio Williams, my question, can he play outside, or is he a slot only? Because he's a really good player.
He's definitely more of a Z type guy, I think. And just watching the way he played, we see he possesses a lot of speed. The games that I watched, I didn't see a vertical field stretcher, nor do I feel like they utilize him in that way. But underneath, just his ability to separate right now with feet, quickness, twitch, he did that consistently. So strong hands, a guy that you would see they design things to get the ball in his hands. And I thought they did that very well. I might steal a couple of those concepts. He was definitely a guy that I like. Now, can he play on the outside again? Z off the ball. I think when you think of his build and you think of guys the 49ers have, and you see Jacob Cowling, he's a little bit taller than Jacob Cowling. You look at Watkins, I think he has more twitch, suddenness, and route running underneath than Watkins. So he's kind of like those two guys kind of morphed together. Not quite the top end speed of both of those guys as far as timed. And I do believe that especially Watkins was able to be more of a vertical threat. But if you can get that out of him, or maybe if there's other film that shows him being able to win vertically down the field, I think he's a guy that I like.
On top of the 4.41 40-yard dash at 5.11.5, got up to 189 at his pro day. He ran the 3-cone and the agilities at his pro day, 4.10 short shuttle, but a really nice 6.76 3-cone at his pro day as well. 39.5-inch vertical at the combine, by the way. So, yeah, big-time athlete, quick-footed. He's got burst underneath. That's the question for me. He has speed to get deep, but do you see enough of that? Is he an outside player or is he more of a slot only? I think that really changes the dynamic of where you could play him. You start talking about Omar Cooper Jr. Or Casey Concepcion. They're first-round guys because they could for sure operate out of the slot, but they could play that Z role. They could play a full-time outside role, right? When you're in your base offense, they can be an outside wide receiver. Antonio Williams, I start to question that a little bit, which is why he's going to go a round or two later, potentially. But a good player. I like him a lot. Pick 58 would be the question for Antonio Williams and Elijah Sarratt. Croc, would you turn in that card, or do you think the 49ers are most likely going to have a better option, whether it's wide receiver or another position at pick 58 than those two wide receivers?
There's so many I like, and I
Yeah.
still have some of my guys. I would have a hard time taking either one of those guys over Skylar Bell.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
Chris
if you
Bell,
told me,
even Chris Bell with the ACL, it's kind of the same conversation with Jordyn Tyson in the first round. You have that same conversation about Chris Bell in the second round.
but with the 49ers not like quite needing a receiver, it's a little bit more of a luxury pick, but not. I mean, again, short term, more of a luxury pick. Long term, definitely will be a need for in the next couple years. I think it's better money spent hoping that you can get Skylar Bell in the fourth round or trade up into the third.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm just, the more I look at this, one of those wide receivers is going to be there, even if Skylar Bell goes earlier than he's being projected. But it feels like everyone's sleeping on Skylar Bell, and that he would potentially be there for the 49ers in that at least trade upable range, close to round 4. By the way, looking at the beast right now, Croc, at the rankings. So the 19th overall wide receiver, Skylar Bell out of UConn for Dane Brugler in the beast, 4th round projection here. Chris Brazzell, 3rd to 4th round projection, wide receiver 17, behind Bryce Lance, Chris Brazzell. So that's an interesting one. Some people like him as a first round guy, and Brugler has him all the way as a sort of a fringe day 3 guy.
I think that Brugler and I are a little bit closer on him than everyone else.
Yeah,
I think
me
I
too.
see him.
I'm there, and
I would take him definitely over Bryce Lance, but I think he's closer to that than he is people talking about pick 27 or second round.
By the way, talking about 10-yard splits, Bryce Lance ran 4.34. He had a 1.49 10-yard split, which is the fastest 10 yards I've seen for anybody in the draft. That's crazy.
I don't think I've ever heard of one that fast. Maybe
That's
I have.
Really fast. That's like the type of split that you have when you're running 4.2s. In fact, Brennan Thompson had the fastest 40 at the combine this year, 4.26. He had the same 10 yards, 1.54.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's where we're at. I don't know if these 3 receivers line up for the 49ers in any specific round, even though I like all 3 of them to a degree. Jordyn Tyson, Elijah Surratt, and Antonio Williams. I feel like Surratt or Williams almost has to fall to round 4 before it's like, yeah, that's where you take that swing. And even then, if someone like Skylar Bell is there, I like Skylar Bell better. And I think you do too. Ted Hurst, where's he going to go? Is it round 2? Is it round 4? Is it somewhere in between? Probably somewhere in between. But there's just so much. The more we do this, Croc, is so much more likely that there's going to be a good wide receiver post round 2 versus if you're trying to find that plug and play guard, or especially if you're trying to find a future offensive tackle, or if you're trying to find that edge rusher. So edge rusher just cemented round 1 or 2. One of those picks is going to be an edge, period. Right? Is that round 1 or is that round 2? And what's the other pick going to be is the question. I think wide receiver is a position you can wait on, and you can find a talented guy potentially in round 4 or close to round 4.
Get better in the trenches.
Gotta get better up front, Croc. I was on with Larry Kruger on KBR a little earlier tonight. I don't even know what day it is. Wednesday night it is right now. And the conversation basically was like, if you are the 49ers are a serious team that thinks they're going to contend based on everything they did this offseason, they're trying to win football games this year, right? They're trying to be a contender, a really good football team. You can't do that unless you have a legit pass rush. So that you come back to that, it's like that is a got to have. You can fudge guard. Maybe Brandon Jones is good enough. You could have draft a 4th round guy to compete, right? And you can figure that position out. If you don't have a pass rush, pack it in, man.
Yeah. I mean, we consistently see that year after year. Whether it was the Rams last year, the Seahawks and what they were able to do, the Eagles in recent years and what they had up front. Even Kansas City Chiefs, the 2 times they beat the 49ers, being able to get pass rush productivity out of Chris Jones at the right times as well. So a lot of times it comes down to having that guy guys that definitely can win.
Yep. There it is. That's where we are 2 weeks out from the NFL draft. Let us know what you think. At BD Peacock, at Coach Crocky, hit us up in the YouTube comments. Subscribe while you're there. Check out the Everydayer Club, and Croc and I back tomorrow right here. Locked On 49ers.